My 17-year-old daughter, she ditched me. I thought she would stick with me after her father ditched me to go with a younger mistress, but hey, we're going to get to that in a second. So my 17-year-old daughter decides to move with her dad and her new mother, her stepmom, just because they're a bit more wealthy than I am. Well, guys, here's where it gets sticky. It turns out that, well, the stepmother doesn't want anything to do with her, and she kicks her out of the house the second she turned 18. And then little Miss 18-year-old shows up in my house. And this is what I have to say to her.
Well, I never thought I would even write here, but I guess there's a first time for everything. Anyways, this is a throwaway account because I don't want anything coming back to me or even being linked to me for that matter. However, I need you guys to give me some advice on how I handled a certain situation. It might be a lengthy read to some, so please bear with me. I'm sure all the parent readers will be able to relate and let me know if I handled the situation the best way possible, but even if you're not a parent, your comment would still be appreciated. So let me give you some context. I'm 40. I was married for almost 16 years to a materialistic monster. We'll call him Gerald. He's 45, and we all like nice things, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with spoiling yourself, but my ex-husband started obsessing over money, which turned him into a self-centered, greedy person. He completely changed from that sweet gentleman I met in college. Anyways, we're currently going through a very draining divorce, and yes, I was the one who filed it. The only great thing that came out of our marriage is our beautiful daughter, Brielle. She's always been the apple of my eye. Well, she's 17 now, and I fell pregnant with her during my last year of culinary school, so she was definitely a surprise, but what a good one. Our pre-divorce agreement is that she stays with me and visits her father whenever she wants. Since she's going to be the legal age soon, she'll be deciding where she stays permanently instead of the court deciding for her. My daughter and I have been very close since she was a baby. She and her father have never really been close since the beginning of the divorce proceedings. She's been spending a lot of time with her father, which I don't mind because he is her dad, and I've always nagged him about spending more time with her. Anywho, let me not bore you guys with too many of the menial details. I was working from home and busy answering work emails when my daughter walked into my home office. She said she just came back from school and it looked like she was in such a bad mood. She greeted me and then sat down opposite of me, and I greeted her back and asked how was school. She rolls her eyes and tells me that she hated her school and that she wanted to transfer, and she's been bringing up transferring schools quite a lot lately. Well, which I didn't understand because she was in her senior year, meaning that she only had 1 year of school left before college. Her reason for wanting to transfer was that she wanted to go to this expensive private school that her best friend had moved to last year. I told her that the school was too expensive and that she and I still had to figure out how we were going to pay for college, and unfortunately my daughter could not understand that. So she has been sour about the topic ever since. I asked her what was wrong with her current school because she had never had any problems with it before. Well, she groaned and said that she had been telling me what the problems were, but I never listened to her, and I told her that her wanting to move schools just because her best friend was now attending a fancy, expensive school, that's not a good enough reason to transfer a whole school. I also told her that her father and I were saving up for her college fund, and she just rolls her eyes and tells me that her father said that she could do it if she wanted, and that he also told her that she did not have to go to college. Well, I shook my head and told her that she is going to college. She just groaned and moaned and whispered under her breath that I was so boring. She walked out and I just sighed, and I took out my phone and texted her father. This was one of the things that I hated, him always trying to be the fun parent and letting Brielle get away with whatever she wanted. I texted him asking him not to fill our daughter's mind with these utter lies. A few hours later, I was in the kitchen cooking dinner when my mother walked in. She greeted me and asked how I was doing. I told her I'm all right. She looked at me and told me that I didn't look all right. I gave her a little smile and told her that the divorce was just draining me. And she hugged me and rubbed my back, and she assured me that better days were on the way. She then told me that she was glad that I was finally divorcing Gerald, and I reminded her that Brielle was around and she just frowned. My mother used to adore and love Gerald, but it all changed once we found out that he's been cheating on me with a woman half his age. Hell, the girl wasn't even that much older than Brill. So now she's never having anything nice to say about him, but I've asked her to not talk about him around Brill because at the end of the day, he is her dad, and I always have to remind my mother about that fact. My mother helped me cook dinner, and when it was done, I called Brill to come down and eat. She came downstairs, and she was still in a sour mood. She greeted her grandmother with a bit of an attitude, which my mother responded to. She asked Brill what her problem was, and Brill told her that she didn't have a problem. We took our seats by the dinner table and ate in silence. Well, Brill was just moving her food around, and I asked her what's wrong, and she asked me why didn't we order takeaway food. My mother raised her eyebrow. Brill continued to say that at her dad's they ate fast food every day. And not just takeaway, but fancy takeaways. I'm talking real good stuff. My mother chuckled and rolled her eyes, and I then told Brill that I thought my meatloaf was one of her favorite meals. She groaned and asked me why I am so cheap. I looked at her in shock, and my mother put the fork down and looked at Brill straight in the eyes and told her that she better stop acting like such a spoiled brat. I saw that Brill wanted to talk back, but she knew that would be a big mistake because one thing about my mother is that she does not tolerate disrespect. Brill kept quiet and ate a bit of her meatloaf, and after a few minutes she asked if she could eat later. I nodded my head, and she immediately went back to her room without even putting her food away. I shook my head and sighed, and my mother gave me a serious look and asked why I allowed Brill to disrespect me. I responded by telling her that Brill has been through a lot, and that the divorce has not been easy for her. My mother then told me that just because she was going through a lot did not mean that she could be disrespectful. She then also told me that I've always spoiled Brill and that this is why she feels that she can behave this way. I took a deep breath and asked my mother to please drop the topic, which she did, but she told me that she would eventually bite me in the butt for this. I mean, guys, what do you think? Do you think that I'm spoiling my daughter? I mean, she really has been through a lot, and I'm just trying to handle the situation the best that I know how. Update number 1. Hello, everyone. So, a few days have actually passed since the last time I went about posting. Strangely, Brill has been acting very, very sweet towards me. Weird. She has been behaving and has not brought up the whole transferring school topic, not even once. And Brill and I were out for lunch because she asked me if we could go on a mother-daughter date. Which surprised me, but I was happy because it's been a while since we spent some time together. We were ordering our food when Brill asked if we could have a serious conversation. I raised my eyebrow and told her yes we could. Well, she takes a deep breath and began apologizing for her bad behavior. She explained that the reason she's been acting out is because the whole divorce has been really hard on her. So I offered my hand to her and she put her hand in mine. I then told her that I completely understood that the divorce has been hard on her, and I also told her that this storm would pass and that things would get better. Well, she nodded and gave me a little bit of a smile. And our food finally arrived, and Brill then proceeded to tell me that she was glad that we had finally had this conversation. Well, I smiled back, and I told her that I was glad that we spoke about this as well. I then asked her what she and her father had planned to do during spring break even. She told me that she didn't want to spend spring break with her father. She explained to me that her father's girlfriend was always at his place and that lately he's only been giving her his time and attention. I rubbed her back and sighed, and I couldn't believe that he was bringing a stupid mistress around our child. Brill looked at me with her cute little eyes and asked if we could do something fun during spring break. So I asked her, well, what did she want to do? She asked if we could take a mini girls' trip, just the two of us, and she further explained that she wanted this trip just to be the both of us because we hardly spent any time together. After lunch, Brill immediately wanted us to plan our trip. She wanted us to go to Miami, as I was looking at the places that she had found. I noticed how expensive they were, and Brill knew that I made a decent salary as a personal assistant, unlike her father, who was just a successful and wealthy business owner. But because of how excited she was, I just decided to go along with everything. I haven't seen her this happy in a very long time. A few days later, We were in Miami at our beautiful Airbnb that had a beautiful ocean view which Brill was obsessed with. I asked her what did she want to do first, and she rolled her eyes at me but then quickly smiled at me afterwards. She tells me that we should unpack and relax for a bit. A few hours have passed and Brill was dressed up. I asked where we're going, which required us to get all dressed up. She told me that she was going out with a few friends from school who were also here on vacation. Well, this came as a shock to me. I raised my eyebrows at her and asked her if this was the reason that she wanted me to come. She denied it and said that she just got to know an hour ago, and I sighed and told her that she must not stay out till late. She promised me that she wouldn't, however she did not keep it up. Brill was out the whole damn night. I was worried sick about her because her phone was flipped off and I couldn't reach her. I stayed up waiting for her and she eventually shows up at 8 in the morning. She looked refreshed and was even dressed in a completely different outfit. So I immediately start to scream and shout at her and she apologized, and then she also started to cry. She explained that one of her friends had gotten really drunk and that she had to take care of her. Before I could reprimand her about underage drinking, she explained that she had not even taken a sip, and she knew that what her friend was doing was wrong, but she could not just leave her alone. So she took her back home, and that her friend's parents had told her to stay the night because it was late and dangerous for her to catch an Uber on her own. After a couple of deep breaths, I told Braille that I understood what she had done this for, but that I wish she would have at least kept her phone on. She then assured me that she would never do such a thing again. I hugged her and told her that I was just glad that she was safe, and later on, Brill decided to surprise me with a trip to a popular market. I absolutely love a good market. We spent a few hours there and we had so much damn fun. We spent the next couple of days exploring and having a blast, and something that I had not done in a very long time, especially with her. Once we got back home, I was telling my mother all about the trip and she frowned and told me that Brill's up to something. I asked her to stop being so negative. She tells me that I was being blinded and irresponsible, and she says that I needed to toughen up a bit and be, more hard on Brill. So I'm asking, what do you guys think? Am I being blind and irresponsible? Update number 2. Well, it was finally the day of the final hearing. After this hearing, I would officially be a free woman. For some odd reason, I wasn't as nervous or scared as I thought I would be, and we were all in the courtroom and I was sitting next to my attorney while my ex-husband was seated on the opposite side. I noticed that Brill was seated right behind him, which I found strange. But I also understood that she had been at her father's this past weekend, and they probably just arrived together. My mother and sister-in-law Louise were behind me, and Louise was Gerald's sister, but we've always been close and she's made it known that she doesn't agree with her brother's actions. The hearing started, and as the judge was about to say something, Gerald's attorney announced that Brill had something that she would like to share with the court. My attorney looked at me and asked if I had any idea about what Brill wanted to share. I shook my head and shrugged my shoulders, and Brill took the stand, and I was absolutely shocked and gobsmacked by what she just said. I was shaken and stirred, and all I wanted to do was break down. Brill had shared that she did not want to live with me because of how irresponsible and mentally unstable I was. She explained to the court that I had left at a party in Miami where kids were under the age drinking, and she further explained that luckily her father had also been in Miami, so he fetched her from the party and she had slept by him. She also said that I was a reckless spender, that the Miami trip had been my idea, that the only reason I did the trip was so that I could compete with her father, who has clearly moved on. Brill continued to tarnish my reputation and role as a mother. Guys, I was devastated. The court granted Gerald full custody of Brill and that she would be living with him full time. The court also told me that I would be first investigated by a social worker before they would allow Brill to even visit me, but either way, those visits would of course be supervised. After the hearing, I immediately rushed out to catch a sight of Brill, who was confidently standing by her father's side. As soon as I got to her, I asked her what the hell. She rolled her eyes and reminded me that I was not allowed to come near her. And, I told her that I didn't care what the court had ordered. I deserved some answers. She smirked and told me that she had never really wanted to spend time, that everything was all part of her and Gerald's plan to tarnish my reputation. I felt hairs on the back of my neck stand up because I could not believe what I was hearing. Brill then tells me that I've always been a rubbish mother, absolutely rubbish, and that she could not stand how I lived like a broke homeless person, and she called me all sorts of names. But the ones that stung me the most were broke, useless, and selfish. My heart shattered as I heard those words, and she told me to never contact her again, otherwise she would inform the social worker, and she smirked and told me that she was going to live with her great father, who was going to give her a better life, and who was going to fulfill all her desires. Something that I would never be able to do. They walked off and I was left alone, and I started crying, and I felt an arm pull on me for a hug, and it was my mom. She tells me that everything was going to be okay and that she was there for me, and she walked me back to my car and tells me that she would find me a home. She would see me there. I nodded my head as I wiped my tears, and I could not believe that my own daughter had done this to me, my own flesh and blood. The child I carried for 9 long months, I was so disgusted and disappointed in her behavior. I was going to make sure that one thing, though, happened. She was not going to get away with such a disgusting behavior. She may have disowned me, quote, as her mom, but I was still going to teach her a lesson. I mean, how do you guys think I should even go about handling this situation? Update number 3. A few weeks have passed since that awful day, and guys, honestly, things have been so hard. As much as I am so angry and hurt by my, daughter's actions, I do still miss her. Louise and I were outside catching up, and she had brought my favorite bottle of wine, but I explained to her that I was on a break from drinking because of the whole court situation. While I was confiding in her, she indirectly made an excellent suggestion. A few hours later, Louise left and I called Gerald, and ironically his mistress answered. I greeted her and she asked me what I wanted. I explained to her that the social worker had instructed me to send over a list of all Brill's needs and most importantly all her school needs and documents, and she asked me what in the world I was talking about. I further explained that since Gerald won Brill's custody, she was her complete responsibility, which included her full financial responsibility too. I could tell that she was shocked about all of this. I told her to tell Gerald that I would be emailing everything and that she would thank him for me. She asked why, and I told her that I no longer have to take care of our daughter financially, meaning that I could just finally spoil myself. I hung up the call and then chuckled because I knew that I had stirred up that pot. After receiving the court's permission, I went to Gerald's house to drop off Brill's things. He was shocked to see me, but was more shocked about the amounts of boxes. He told me, oh my goodness, these boxes would not be able to fit inside of his apartment. I rolled my eyes. And I told him that he had no choice but to make them fit because the court had instructed us to make Brill's new transaction as smooth as possible, which meant her being comfortable in her new home. The following week, Gerald called to ask when Brill would come over. I told him that the investigation was still going on, but I was lying. The investigation had ended over a week ago. But since Gerald had missed the court date, he wasn't aware of that, and as he was about to say something, I just hung up. The investigation's been a waste of time because they found nothing about me, and the court was starting to get very skeptical about the claims that Brill even made. I won't lie, I was enjoying being my own and free of responsibility, but 2 days later, Gerald arrived at my door and he didn't even greet me. He then asked if I could pay half of Brill's school fees, and he explained to me that the business he was doing in was bad. I smirked and told him that since he's the parent with full custody, I was his duty, It's all on him to solely pay for Brill's things. Guys, he looked mortified. I then asked if he could leave because I have to pick up my upcoming girls' weekend. His eyes widened and reminded me that it was Brill's 18th birthday this weekend. I told him that I would give Luis the birthday card and I had, gotten for Brill, and I could tell that he was getting frustrated and feeling absolutely overwhelmed. So I closed the door before he could say anything else, and he started knocking on the door and I ignored him. And a few days after my trip and Brill's birthday, there was a loud knock at my door at 4 a.m. I went downstairs to check it out, and it was Brill with 2 suitcases, right there standing by the door. I haven't seen my daughter since that final hearing, and she looked awful. She greeted me, and I asked what the heck she's doing here. She immediately broke down in tears and tells me that her father had kicked her out because of his mistress, and she further explained that ever since she moved there, the mistress would complain about how expensive Brill's upkeep is. And this wasn't what she signed up for, yada yada yada. She also explained that her father was not as rich as he said he was. She then told me that she had gotten a job because nobody was buying her anything and that she didn't even get to celebrate her own birthday. She then proceeded to tell me that the moment she turned 18, she was kicked out because she was now of legal age and no longer needed parental supervision or anything because she was no longer a minor. She further explained that she's been staying at a rundown motel that was infested with cockroaches because that was all that she could simply afford. After she stopped crying, I asked her what she wanted me to do because she was no longer my legal responsibility. She was shocked by my response. She then begged me to take her in and that she was sorry about everything. She tells me that the only reason she had turned on me in court was embarrassing because her father had promised her a car. She also told me that her father has been filling her head with nothing but lies about me, and that she's been dumb enough to fall for them. All because she's always wanted his love and validation, and something that I've always known. Honestly, while I was looking at her, I saw glimpses of my sweet girl, but then I also saw the girl that betrayed and embarrassed me in front of the whole courthouse. Guys, what would you have done? Update number 4. Hey guys, this is the final update. It's been a couple of months now, and the roller coaster of emotions and tears and all, it's over. I haven't seen my ex-husband at all since the day he physically came to see me, but Luis informed me that he has filed for bankruptcy, and that his little young lady has left him. He's currently staying with an old buddy until he can get back on his feet. He hasn't checked up on Brill at all, and I mean, what kind of father just kicks out his daughter and leaves her stranded with no money and homeless? But hey, I wasn't surprised. Gerald had always been a self-centered person. Brill and I were still working on our relationship, and I'm still hurt by her actions, and it's going to take a very long time for me to trust her again. She moved back in with me, but I gave her the underground basement as her room. I told her that she had to work her way back into the house, and she's been trying to. I don't think my revenge was that deep or malicious, but I'm glad that I managed to teach my daughter a valuable lesson. Sometimes I ask myself, at what cost, though? I mean, at the end of the day, I missed my only child's 18th birthday, and that's something you can't ever bring back. I always wonder if she resents me for it, but at the same time, I know she also did me dirty, and it was important to her to learn that lesson. I guess this revenge was bittersweet, even though it mostly felt bitter. Anyways, thank you once again for all your advice and support throughout the journey. I wish you all well.